Hi, I'm Jim, and this is the story of the time that I got almost beaten up by a Hispanic cleaner when I was in primary school, and it scarred me for a long time. And I like telling. I tell this story a lot, so I figured why not include you guys in the story? Why not draw some funny little pictures as I do it? And also, I'm replacing all the people in this story's names with letters because I don't talk to these people anymore. Because you'll find the common theme in this story is that everybody I knew when I was a kid was fucking crazy or a douchebag or both. Enjoy. Okay, so let me set the scene. It's 2006 or 2005, and I am in the fifth grade or the sixth grade. So it's middle school, and it's an unusual time. I think it might be a bit before that. It was like year three or four. And so I'm like, I don't even know how old I was. And I'm hanging out at school, and we're hanging out at the quad, which is just outside this little classroom. There's some stairs, which people would try and jump down, and whoever could jump down the most steps and just permanently damage their ankles was the coolest. People would break their arms on these steps all the time, and they were the cool kids. I was one of the kids that could do like three steps at the most because I was small and fragile. I didn't drink a lot of milk because it made my tummy feel funny. Anyway, so I was hanging out with this kid M and this kid S and this other kid J. So hanging out, and we see this really nice metallic green ute covered in dust. And I don't know if you remember being a kid, but if you're given the opportunity to write your name on some shit, you fucking take it, you grab it by the horns, and you make it your bitch. If you have a pen, you don't even think of anonymity. You just want to write your name on every table you can find. It's a unusual thing. It carries over into hip hop culture with graffiti. Writing your name. I mean, when you get older, you get smarter and you use an alias that isn't your name so you don't get caught. But it's still about putting your tag on something, putting your identity on something, just saying, hey, this shit right here, I'm enough of not a pussy to write my name on this shit. Everybody look at me. So we went up behind this ute and we all wrote our names on it. And then my friend S decided to be a fuckwit and set off the car alarm by jumping on the tow bar at the back of this car. And let me give you some history on S. I think he was mentally disturbed. He had an unusual childhood. He was a good friend of mine. I looked up to him a lot because he was not scared of anything, but he was very fragile. For example, one day he was sitting in class with this kid Jay, and they were just talking shit in class in the back of this teacher, whose name I forget. She was a very high-strung teacher. Nobody ever talked during this teacher's class because she'd flip out on you. And Jay turns to S and he goes, "Hey, is your dad a giant hairy Christmas tree?" And S started screaming, grabbed him by the back of the head, and slammed his head into the desk repeatedly until the teacher pulled him off him, screaming and crying after he'd like shattered this other kid Jay's face. History on Jay. Jay was the kid who was he was close to the vice principal for some reason, and Jay, he was another kid I looked up to because he wasn't scared of shit either. Like, he was the only kid that would ever stand up to S because he just didn't give a fuck. And he used to, whenever the vice principal, it was like a sort of forward-thinking school, they do all this cool shit. So the vice principal would take people around, other principals, other whatever manager, whatever's, take them on tours around the school. And Jay would do this thing called tumbleweeding, where when she was having important-looking meetings with important-looking people, he'd roll up, blank expression on his face, he'd roll up into a ball and yell out tumbleweed and just start rolling around her feet. And he did it so much, and he enjoyed it for such obtuse reasons that she couldn't stop him. Like, the more she asked him to stop, the more he'd do it. She'd offer punishment, but we had to stop it. And it got to the point where the best thing she could do is just ignore it. And we get to sit there and piss ourselves laughing at the just bewilderment on the faces of the superintendents and shit of these, like, really big, important institutions, while this slightly mentally deranged kid would roll around her feet with this just blank look of just... He looked bored while he was rolling around her feet. It was fantastic. So Jay would be able to spark S off all the time. S is a crazy kid, so he jumps in the tow bar of what turned out to be the cleaner's ute and set off the alarm. And I'm an idiot, so I ran because I'm always the kid. I was the slow kid. I was the small kid. I had small, stumpy legs, and I couldn't run as quick as the other kids. So whenever shit went down, I had to run first. It wasn't because I was scared. It was because I always got fucking caught. So I'd have to run first just to get my odds up of not being busted. And I found out later on that after I ran, my mates stuck around and rubbed their names off the car and left mine on. So then later on, after lunch, we get into class and the cleaner goes back, turns off his car alarm. He's just, from an adult perspective, I can see how he's just sick of kids fucking with his car. But at the time, I was like, oh no, I have damaged his property by touching the dust in the back of his car. I didn't understand what scare tactics were at the time. Shit was real back then. When an adult was mad at you, it was real. They were angry. They weren't just trying to get you to act right. They didn't care about you. It was raw emotion. And so he comes into class and he's like, oh, I'm looking for Jim. And my teacher's like, oh, he's just here. Are you a member of the faculty? And he's like, yeah, sure. And I was like, oh, fuck, that's the cleaner. And my teacher was South African. A bit of backstory on her. She had a weird name that I still can't pronounce. It was like Marjak, or Marj. Anyway, she was South African. I didn't know what a South African accent was when I was a kid. It sounded kind of French or Kiwi. It sounded more Kiwi. I thought she was handicapped because she was also pregnant, and I thought pregnant ladies were scary because I didn't understand pregnancy at the time. So I thought, because she had a South African accent, I thought she was handicapped. I could never understand a thing she said. She taught me to hate school, and she was like, yes, you can take him if you want. I think that's just anyway. So he grabs me out of the room by my collar. Like, I was scared shitless, and he like pins me against the wall outside the classroom. And he's like, the fuck did you do to my car? And I was like, I wrote my name on it. I burst out crying, and I was like, I don't know. I wrote my name on it. Everyone did it. And he's like, yours is the only name I saw on there, motherfucker. He didn't say that, but he was angry. I think he was just scared. I don't think he was actually angry. I think he was just scaring me. But at the time, I was pissed myself. And he's like, you know what happens when you get your dirty mitts on metallic paint? The dust comes off. The dust layer comes off. You rub off the oil, and it rusts. And I'll end up with my name. I'll end up with your name burnt into the back of my car. And at the time, I was like, oh shit, metallic paint. That's the stuff that's in Midnight Club 2 Dub Edition. That's the really expensive shit. Oh man, like I fucked up his car permanently. And he's like, if the paint comes off my car, which it will, I'm going to look up your name in the records, something that he can't do. And I'm going to send you the bill, also something that he can't do. Because the oil in your fingers is going to melt the paint off my car, something that doesn't happen. And I freaked the fuck out. And I spent the next 3 weeks lying low. I was terrified of that cleaner. Every time I saw his car, I ran in the opposite direction. I got made fun of every day for it because I had to walk back in the classroom with tears in my eyes. The teacher didn't care for some reason that a janitor who probably didn't have a working with children's check grabbed me by my collar and threatened me with legal action. She just sort of nodded at me and told me to get back in class because she didn't give a fuck. She was just looking forward to having a kid, that bitch. I didn't like it at all. And yeah, I spent the next like 6 months kind of just thinking, is that going to happen? Like, is he going to chase that up? And he never did, funnily enough. I never touched his car again, so he got his way in the most aggressive, scary way possible. But yeah, it kind of worked out for him. I was scared shitless, man. That wasn't even the scariest thing that ever happened to me, but it was the most adult thing that I think that ever confronted me in school. And I didn't make sure not to fuck with people's property because I was an idiot, but I made sure not to get caught after that. So that's my story. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've got a lot of stories like that, so if you enjoyed this, holy shit, have you got a lot more stories ahead of you? And if you didn't, let me know, and I'll stop telling these stories because it's probably a waste of everybody's time. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. If you're one of the people in this story, go fuck yourself. I hate all of you, probably. I haven't heard from any of them in a long time, and that's just fine by me. Yeah, thanks for listening, bye.